The unknown ships moved closer with each passing minute. On the main scanner display, their aggressive design became clearer. These vessels were built for one purpose only: war. Their hulls were covered with heavy armor and massive weapon systems. They showed no interest in communication and ignored all attempts at contact. "Captain," Communications Officer Ji-Yon reported, "I am getting no response from the approaching ships. They are jamming all normal communication frequencies." Captain Hyunwoo studied the tactical display with serious eyes. "How long until they reach us, Sojin?" Officer Sojin checked her instruments. 23 minutes at current speed, Captain. They are moving much faster than normal space travel allows. Some kind of advanced propulsion system. Fleet Commander Velthara watched. The same displays on his own ship. The approaching vessels were larger than Velkari battlecruisers and moved with deadly purpose. "Mordek, do you recognize those ship designs?" Science Officer Mordek worked frantically at his scanning station. "No, Commander. They are completely unknown. But their energy signatures suggest weapons far more powerful than our own." "More powerful than Velkari weapons?" Tactical Officer Zonhai asked with disbelief. "Much more powerful. Commander, these ships could destroy our entire fleet in minutes." On the communication screen, Captain Hyunwoo made a decision. "Commander, Velthara, we face a common threat now. I propose we work together until this danger is past." Velthara looked at his officers. Just an hour ago, he had been trying to force these humans to surrender. Now he needed their help to survive. "What do you suggest, Captain?" "First, we need to share information. My communications officer has been analyzing the approaching ships. Perhaps together we can learn more about them." Ji-Yon moved to stand beside Captain Hyunwoo. "Commander Velthara, we have encountered ships like these before in other parts of space. We call them devourers. They are a species that consumes entire star systems." "Consume star systems?" Mordek asked. "What do you mean?" "They strip mine planets for resources and enslave any populations they find useful. Then they move on to the next system. We have been fighting them for 50 years. Engineer Taemin joined the conversation. "The Devourers do not negotiate or communicate. They see all other species as either resources to be taken or obstacles to be destroyed." Velthara felt his blood grow cold. "How many systems have they destroyed?" "In human space, they have attacked 17 colonies," Captain Hyunwoo replied. "But we stopped them each time. In the regions beyond human territory, they have consumed hundreds of worlds." "Hundreds," Zonhai whispered. "How is that possible?" "Because most species cannot resist them," Sojin explained. "Devourer ships use weapons that can crack planets. Their shields can absorb almost any attack. They are one of the most dangerous species in the galaxy." Velthara realized that the Velkari Empire had been lucky. They had never encountered the Devourers because human space stood between Velkari territory and Devourer territory. Humans had been protecting them without knowing they existed. "Commander," Mordek said urgently, "the approaching ships have increased speed. They will be here in 15 minutes. Captain Hyunwoo activated his ship's communication system. "This is Captain Hyunwoo to all human vessels. We have confirmed Devourer ships approaching. Move to defensive formation and prepare for combat." On the scanner display, the 12 human ships began moving into complex patterns. They spread out across space but maintained perfect coordination. Velthara watched in amazement as the human fleet worked together like a single organism. "How do they coordinate so perfectly?" Zonhai asked. "Advanced communication systems," Taemin explained. "All human ships share tactical information instantly. When one ship sees something, all ships know about it immediately." "Commander Velthara," Captain Hyunwoo said, "I want to offer your fleet protection during this battle, but I need to know if you will follow human tactical commands." Velthara hesitated. Following orders from another species went against everything he had been taught about Velkari superiority. But the alternative was facing the Devourers alone, which meant certain death. "What would you need us to do?" Velthara asked. "Stay close to our ships. Use your weapons when we tell you to fire. Do not break formation no matter what happens." "Can you do this?" Velthara looked at his officers. Zonhai nodded grimly. Mordek was already working to interface Velkari systems with human communication frequencies. They understood that pride was less important than survival. We accept your offer, Captain Hyunwoo. Velkari ships will follow human commands. Excellent. Taemin, help them integrate their systems with our tactical network. The young human engineer began working with Mordek to connect the two fleets' communication systems. As the connection was established, Velkari officers heard human voices coordinating the defense. This is Captain Minho of the UES Defender. All ships report readiness status. UES Guardian ready for combat. UES Protector weapons charged and standing by. UES Thunder shields at maximum power. One by one, the human ships reported their status. Velthara listened in wonder at the calm professionalism in their voices. These humans were about to face an enemy that could destroy planets, but they sounded like they were discussing the weather. Commander, Mordek reported, I am now receiving human tactical data. Their sensors are showing details about the Devourer ships that our scanners cannot detect. What kind of details? Weapon types, shield frequencies, structural weak points. Commander, the humans have fought these enemies many times before. They know exactly how to defeat them. On the main screen, Captain Hyunwoo was explaining the battle plan. The Devourers will try to overwhelm us with their main weapons. These are plasma cannons much more powerful than anything you have seen before. But they have one weakness. They take time to recharge between shots. How much time? Sonhai asked. 47 seconds, Sojin replied precisely. During that time, their shields are weakened to redirect power to weapons. That is when we attack. But how do we survive their first attack? Velthara asked. Human ships will absorb the initial strike, Captain Hyunwoo said calmly. Our shields can handle Devourer weapons for short periods. Velkari ships will attack during the recharge period. Velthara stared at the human captain. You will take the most dangerous part of the battle to protect us. Commander, humans do not abandon allies. If we fight together, we all survive together. 10 minutes until contact, Jian announced. The Devourer ships were now close enough to see clearly. They were massive vessels, twice the size of the largest human ships. Their hulls were black metal covered with weapon ports that glowed with deadly energy. They moved in perfect formation, showing no concern for the defenders waiting ahead. All human ships, this is Captain Hyunwoo. Remember, we protect those who cannot protect themselves. Today, the Velkari fight beside us as allies. Do not let them down. Understood, Captain, came the replies from across the human fleet. Velthara felt something he had never experienced before. These humans, who he had tried to force into submission just hours ago, were now risking their lives to protect his ships. They asked for nothing in return except cooperation in battle. Commander, Zonhai said quietly, I was wrong about these humans. We were all wrong, Velthara replied. They are not primitive. They are the most advanced species we have ever encountered. 5 minutes to contact, Sojin reported. Devourer ships are charging their main weapons. Captain Hyunwoo turned to face the communication screen one last time before battle. Commander Velthara, whatever happens in the next few minutes, know that humanity is honored to fight beside the Velkari Empire. Together we will show the Devourers that this region of space is protected. Captain Hyunwoo, Velthara replied with deep respect. The Velkari Empire is honored to call humans our allies. On the scanner display, the Devourer ships opened fire. 6 massive energy beams shot across space toward the combined fleet. The beams were so powerful that they lit up the darkness like artificial suns. All human ships, Captain Hyunwoo commanded. Maximum shields. Protect our Velkari allies. Show the Devourers what happens when they threaten our friends. The human ships moved forward to intercept the deadly beams, their shields flaring with brilliant light as they absorbed attacks that could destroy worlds. Behind them, Velkari ships prepared to strike back with everything they had. The real battle was about to begin. The stars stretched endlessly in all directions as 3 large ships moved through the empty space between galaxies. These ships belonged to the Velkari Empire, a race that had ruled this part of space for thousands of years. Their ships were massive and beautiful, with smooth metal hulls that shined like mirrors under the distant starlight. Fleet Commander Velthara stood on the bridge of the lead ship, looking out at the dark space ahead. He was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and 4 arms that moved with grace. His large eyes glowed with purple light as he watched the scanner displays. The Velkari had come here to study a strange energy reading that their scientists had detected weeks ago. "Commander," said Science Officer Mordek from his station. His voice was calm and curious. "We are reaching the location where the energy readings came from, but I see nothing unusual here." Velthara nodded slowly. This was not surprising. Most of the strange things they found in space turned out to be nothing important. Natural events like dying stars or gas clouds. Sometimes they found primitive species that had just learned to travel between planets. Those species always bowed down to the mighty Velkari Empire without question. "Continue scanning," Velthara ordered. "We will stay here for 3 cycles and map everything in this area." Tactical Officer Zonhai looked up from his weapons console. He was younger than the others, with scars on his face from old battles. "Commander, if we find another primitive species, should we follow the usual protocols?" "Of course," Velthara replied with confidence. "Show them our power. Make them understand that the Velkari Empire is their new master. Then we take what resources they have and move on." This was how things always went. The Velkari were so advanced that no species could resist them. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. Their shields were so strong that nothing could hurt their ships. When other species saw Velkari ships, they either ran away in fear or surrendered immediately. But today would be different. "Commander," Mordek's voice suddenly became excited. "I am detecting a ship approaching our position. It is unusual." Velthara turned to face the science officer. "What do you mean, unusual?" "The ship is small, much smaller than ours, but it is moving very fast and heading directly toward us." On the main screen, a small dot appeared among the stars. As it came closer, the Velkari could see it more clearly. The ship was strange-looking. It was not smooth and beautiful like Velkari ships. Instead, it looked rough and practical. The hull was dark gray metal with many small parts sticking out from it. There were weapon mounts, sensor arrays, and other equipment attached to the outside. "It looks primitive," Zonhai said with disgust. "Like someone built it from scrap metal." Velthara studied the approaching ship. It was indeed much smaller than their vessels, maybe 1/10 the size of his flagship. "Scan it completely. What species built this thing?" Mordek worked at his console for several minutes. "The readings are strange, Commander. The hull appears to be made of simple iron and steel alloys, but the density is much higher than it should be. The energy signatures are also confusing. They look basic, but something feels wrong about them. Wrong how? I cannot explain it. The power source should not be able to support a ship of this size for long journeys between stars. But here it is." The unknown ship continued approaching at steady speed. It showed no signs of fear or hesitation. This surprised Velthara. Most species turned around and fled as soon as they saw Velkari ships. "Open communication channels," Velthara ordered. "Let us see what kind of creatures dare to approach the mighty Velkari Empire." A moment later, the main screen changed. Instead of showing the approaching ship, it now showed the inside of the alien vessel's bridge. Velthara and his officers stared in surprise at what they saw. The bridge was much smaller than theirs, but it was clean and organized. Several creatures sat at control stations working calmly at their tasks. These aliens looked very different from any species the Velkari had encountered before. They were shorter than Velkari, with pink-brown skin and hair growing from the tops of their heads. They had only 2 arms and 2 eyes, but they moved with confidence and purpose. One of the aliens, wearing what appeared to be a uniform with symbols on it, stepped forward. He looked directly at the screen with calm, intelligent eyes. When he spoke, his voice was clear and steady. "Greetings. I am Captain Hyunwoo of the United Earthship Tempest. We are explorers from the planet Earth, traveling through this region on a peaceful mission. We detected your ships and wanted to make contact. We come in peace and friendship." Velthara was shocked. This alien captain spoke to him as an equal. There was no fear in his voice, no begging for mercy. He acted as if his tiny ship was just as important as the mighty Velkhari fleet. "I am Fleet Commander Velthara of the Velkhari Empire," he replied, making his voice sound powerful and threatening. "You are now in space controlled by our empire. Your ship will submit to inspection and escort to our nearest base." Captain Hyunwoo listened politely, then smiled slightly. "I appreciate your offer, Commander Velthara. However, according to our star charts, we are currently in neutral space. No empire claims control over this region. We would be happy to share information about our respective civilizations, but we cannot submit to inspection without proper diplomatic agreements." The Velkhari officers looked at each other in disbelief. Zonhai's hand moved toward his weapon. "Controls. Commander, this primitive dares to refuse our generous offer." But Velthara was more confused than angry. In all his years of commanding fleets, no species had ever spoken to him this way. They were always too terrified to do anything, but agree to whatever the Velkhari demanded. On the screen, other aliens moved around the human bridge. A female with long black hair worked at what appeared to be a weapons console. Her movements were quick and precise. Another human, this one working at an engineering station, looked young, but very focused on his tasks. A third alien, also female, sat at a communication console and seemed to be recording everything that was being said. "Your ship appears to be built from primitive materials," Velthara said, trying to regain control of the conversation. "Our scans show simple metals and basic technology. Surely you understand that resistance to the Velkhari Empire is impossible." Captain Hyunwoo nodded thoughtfully. "Our ship may look simple to you, Commander. We humans prefer function over appearance. We build our ships to do their jobs well, not to look impressive." "Humans?" Mordek whispered. "I have never heard of this species." Captain Hyunwoo heard him and smiled again. "That is not surprising, Science Officer. This is our first time in this region of space. We are always happy to meet new civilizations. Perhaps we can learn from each other." Velthara felt his anger growing. This human captain was treating him like a friend instead of showing proper respect for Velkhari superiority. "You do not seem to understand your situation, human. We have 3 warships. You have 1 small vessel. Logic demands that you surrender now." The human captain's expression became more serious, but he remained calm. "Commander Velthara, I understand you see our ship as small and weak, but appearances can be deceiving. We prefer to solve problems through peaceful discussion rather than threats of force." "Peaceful discussion?" Zonhai laughed harshly. "Commander, let me show these primitives what happens when they refuse to obey the Velkhari Empire." Velthara considered this. Perhaps a small demonstration would make these humans understand reality. "Very well. Target their engines with minimum power, just enough to disable their ship but not destroy it." "With pleasure, Commander." The tactical officer began charging the plasma cannons. The Velkhari weapons were incredibly powerful, designed to punch through the strongest shields and armor. Even at minimum power, they could easily cripple most ships. On the screen, Captain Hyunwoo watched calmly as the Velkhari ships began to glow with charging energy. He turned to speak quietly with his crew. The female at the weapons console nodded and began working at her controls. The engineer started adjusting settings on his station. The communications officer continued recording everything. "Captain Hyunwoo," Velthara said in his most commanding voice, "you have 10 seconds to surrender your ship for inspection. If you refuse, we will be forced to disable your vessel." The human captain turned back to face the screen. His expression was still calm, but now there was something else in his eyes. Something that made Velthara feel uncomfortable for reasons he could not understand. "Commander Velthara," Captain Hyunwoo said quietly, "I respectfully decline your demand. However, I should warn you that taking hostile action against a United Earth vessel may have consequences you have not considered." Velthara stared at the human captain in complete amazement. Even now, facing 3 superior warships, this primitive alien still refused to show fear. "Fire," Velthara ordered. Fleet Commander Velthara watched his scanner displays with growing horror. What had started as 3 dots on the edge of sensor range was now becoming a clear picture of approaching ships. Human ships. and there were many more than he had expected. How many? He asked Science Officer Mordek in a voice that was barely a whisper. Mordek worked at his console with all 4 hands, trying to get accurate readings. I count 12 ships so far, Commander, but they are still too far away to scan properly. There might be more. 12 ships? Tactical Officer Zonhai looked up from his weapons station. Commander, if their exploration ship has shields this powerful, what will their warships be like? Velthara did not answer. He was staring at the communication screen where Captain Hyunwoo waited patiently for his response. The human captain's calm expression had not changed, but now Velthara understood why. The humans had been in control of this situation from the very beginning. You planned this, Velthara said accusingly. You led us into a trap. Captain Hyunwoo shook his head. No, Commander. We did not plan anything. Human ships travel together for safety, just as your ships do. When we detected your fleet, my ship was sent ahead to make first contact while the others waited at a safe distance. Safe distance for who? Zonhai demanded. For everyone, officer. My government prefers that first contact situations remain peaceful. Having too many ships present at the beginning can make new species feel threatened. On the human bridge, communications. Officer Ji-yeon spoke quietly to her captain. Sir, the other ships are requesting permission to move closer. Captain Minho is asking if we need assistance. Tell Captain Minho that we are handling the situation. But ask the fleet to maintain current position and be ready to respond if needed. Velthara heard this exchange and felt his last hope disappearing. The humans had an entire fleet waiting nearby, and they were so confident that they were not even bringing those ships forward yet. Commander, Mordek said urgently, I am getting more detailed scans of the approaching human vessels. Some of them are much larger than the Tempest, and their energy signatures are incredible. What do you mean incredible? I mean their power output is beyond anything in our databases. Commander, I think we have made a serious mistake about these humans. Velthara looked at his science officer with anger and fear. What kind of mistake? We assumed they were primitive because their ship looks rough and simple. But Commander, what if they build their ships to be functional instead of beautiful? What if rough and simple means reliable and effective? On the communication screen, Captain Hyunwoo was speaking with his tactical officer, Sojin. Velthara could see them discussing something, but he could not hear their words. Finally, Captain Hyunwoo turned back to face the screen. Commander Velthara, I can see that you are concerned about the arrival of more human ships. Let me assure you that they are here for protection only. However, your continued threats against my vessel are making this situation more dangerous for everyone. Our threats? Velthara shouted. You are the ones who brought a fleet to threaten us. Commander, you fired on my ship twice without cause. In human law, that is an act of war. I have been very patient with you, but my patience is not unlimited. Officer. Sojin looked up from her console and spoke to her captain. Sir, the Velkari ships still have all weapons charged and locked onto us. Should I activate our point defense systems? Do it, Sojin. Full defensive mode. Velthara watched in confusion as the human ship suddenly changed. Small panels opened all over its hull, revealing dozens of tiny weapon mounts. Sensor arrays extended from hidden compartments. The ship that had looked rough and simple now bristled with defensive systems that had been invisible moments before. What are those? Zonhai asked, staring at his tactical display. Mordek was scanning frantically. Point defense weapons, hundreds of them. Commander, this ship is designed to intercept incoming attacks and destroy them before they reach the hull. That is impossible, Velthara said. No ship can carry that many defensive systems. Look at your screen, Commander, Captain Hyunwoo said calmly. You are seeing the result of human engineering philosophy. We do not build our ships to look impressive. We build them to keep our crews alive. Velthara realized he was trapped. His 3 ships had all weapons charged and ready to fire, but now he understood that attacking would be suicide. These humans had technology far beyond anything the Velkari Empire possessed. What do you want from us? Velthara asked, his voice defeated. I want the same thing I wanted at the beginning of this conversation, Commander. I want to establish peaceful contact between our civilizations. I want to share information and learn about each other. I want to part as friends instead of enemies. Friends? Zonhai laughed bitterly. After we attacked your ship? Captain Hyunwoo smiled slightly. Officer, humans understand that first contact situations are confusing and scary. We do not hold grudges over misunderstandings. But we also do not forget lessons about who can be trusted. Engineer Tai Min spoke quietly to his captain. Sir, should I explain to them why their weapons were ineffective? They seem confused about our defensive capabilities. Good idea, Tai Min. Perhaps understanding will help prevent future mistakes. Captain Hyunwoo turned back to the communication screen. Commander Velthara, my engineer would like to explain why your weapons did not damage our ship. This might help you understand human technology better. Taemin moved to stand beside his captain. He was young and looked friendly, but when he spoke, his knowledge was clearly very advanced. Commander Velthara, your plasma weapons are very powerful, but they use a standard frequency that our shields are designed to absorb. We studied plasma technology centuries ago and developed defenses against it. Centuries ago? Mordek asked. How old is your civilization? Humans have been traveling between stars for about 800 years, Taemin replied. We have encountered many different species and many different weapon types. Our ships are designed to defend against all of them. Velthara felt like his world was collapsing. The Velkari Empire had ruled this region of space for thousands of years because no other species could resist their plasma weapons. Now he was learning that humans considered plasma weapons to be old technology. What other weapon types? Mordek asked, his scientific curiosity overcoming his fear. Particle beams, fusion missiles, gravity bombs, quantum disruptors, antimatter torpedoes, Taemin listed casually. We have seen them all. Human ships must be ready for anything. Antimatter torpedoes, Zonhai whispered. We do not even have theories about such weapons. Communications Officer Ji-yeon looked up from her station. Captain, I am receiving a transmission from the Velkari Home Fleet. They are asking Commander Velthara for a status report. Captain Hyunwoo looked at Velthara with serious eyes. Commander, what will you tell your superiors about this encounter? Velthara was quiet for a long moment. His entire career had been built on the assumption that the Velkari Empire was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. Now he was learning that humans were so far ahead of his people that they considered Velkari weapons to be primitive. Do not know, Velthara admitted. What should I tell them? Tell them the truth, Commander. Tell them that you have made first contact with the United Earth government. Tell them that humans are interested in peaceful relations with all civilized species. Tell them that we would like to establish trade agreements and cultural exchanges. And, if they want to test human military capabilities? Zonhai asked. Officer Sojin looked up from her tactical console with a small smile. That would not be wise. Captain Hyunwoo nodded agreement. We would strongly advise against any aggressive actions toward human ships or human space. We are a peaceful people, but we are not defenseless. How not defenseless? Velthara asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. Tai Min consulted his engineering displays. Commander, the UES Tempest is one of our smaller ships. Our main battlecruisers are 20 times larger and carry weapons that can destroy entire moons. And our planetary defense systems, Sojin added, can protect whole star systems from invasion fleets. Velthara looked at his own officers and saw his fear reflected in their faces. The Velkari Empire had 300 ships in their entire fleet. If the humans could destroy moons, then his entire civilization was helpless against them. Commander Velthara, Captain Hyunwoo said gently, I can see that this information frightens you, but please understand humans do not conquer other species. We prefer to make friends and trading partners. Your people have nothing to fear from us as long as you do not attack us. What if we cannot be friends? Velthara asked. Then we will simply avoid each other. The galaxy is large enough for many different civilizations, but I hope we can find common ground for cooperation. Suddenly, Mordek's scanners began showing new alerts. "Commander, I am detecting more ships approaching, but these are not human vessels." Captain Hyunwoo looked at Jiyeon, who was monitoring her communication channels. "What do you see, Jiyeon?" Fleet Commander Velthara stared at the main screen in complete silence. His mind could not accept what he had just seen. The Velkari Empire's plasma weapons were the most powerful in known space. They could destroy entire cities with a single shot. Yet this tiny human ship had made their attack disappear like it was nothing. "Run the scan again," Velthara ordered, his voice shaking slightly. "There must be an error in our instruments." Science Officer Mordek worked frantically at his console. His four hands moved across the controls faster than ever before. "Commander, I have run the scans 5 times. The results are the same. Our plasma bolt struck their shields and was completely absorbed. No damage to their ship at all. Tactical." Officer Zonhai slammed his fist on his control panel. "This is impossible. Our weapons can destroy battleships 3 times larger than that primitive vessel." On the communication screen, Captain Hyunwoo remained calm. Behind him, his crew continued working at their stations. The female officer at the weapons console, who Velthara now noticed wore the name tag So-Jin, was quietly adjusting settings on her displays. The young engineer, whose name tag read Tae-min, was rerouting power through different ship systems. The communications officer, Ji-yeon, was recording everything and monitoring multiple frequencies. Commander Velthara, Captain Hyunwoo, said in the same steady voice, "I hope this demonstration has shown you that our ship is not as defenseless as you assumed. We still prefer to resolve this situation peacefully." Velthara felt his pride burning inside him. No primitive species had ever embarrassed the Velkari Empire like this. His reputation as a fleet commander was being destroyed by creatures who had not even been discovered until today. "Your tricks will not work twice, human," Velthara growled. "Perhaps our minimum power setting was too weak. Zonhai, increase weapons to 20% power." "Commander," Mordek said urgently, "perhaps we should try to understand their technology. Before we escalate further, these readings are very unusual." "Silence," Velthara shouted. "I will not be lectured by primitives who build ships from scrap metal." But Mordek had been studying his scanner results, and what he saw troubled him deeply. The human ship's energy signature was not primitive at all. In fact, it was more efficient than anything he had ever seen. Their power source was small but incredibly dense. Their shields used harmonics that should not be possible with simple technology. "Fire again," Velthara commanded. "Show these humans what happens when they defy the Velkari Empire." This time 3 plasma bolts shot toward the human ship. Each one carried enough energy to melt through the armor of a Velkari cruiser. The bolts moved through space like burning stars, leaving trails of light behind them. On the human bridge, Officer So-Jin watched the incoming weapons calmly. "Captain, 3 plasma bolts approaching. Impact in 15 seconds. "Acknowledged," Captain Hyunwoo replied. "Maintain current shield configuration." "Sir, should I prepare countermeasures?" So-Jin asked. "Not yet. Let them see that increasing." Power will not help them. The plasma bolt struck the human ship's shields at the same moment. The energy was much stronger this time, enough to overload most shield systems in the galaxy. But once again, the impossible happened. The human shields absorbed all 3 attacks without any visible strain. The ship did not even shake from the impact. Zonhai stared at his instruments in horror. "No effect. How is this possible? 20% power should have crippled their ship." On the screen, Captain Hyunwoo shook his head sadly. "Commander Velthara, you are making the same mistake twice. More power will not solve your problem." Velthara felt panic beginning to replace his anger. This was not how first contact was supposed to work. Primitive species were supposed to surrender immediately when they saw Velkari weapons. They were not supposed to laugh at the Empire's most advanced technology. "What kind of shields do you have?" Velthara demanded. "No species in this galaxy possesses such defensive capabilities." Captain Hyunwoo smiled slightly. "Commander, you keep calling us primitive, but you judge our technology only by its appearance. We humans learned long ago that what matters is not how impressive something looks, but how well it works." Behind, Captain Hyunwoo, Engineer Taemin spoke quietly to his captain. Sir, their weapons are using standard plasma acceleration with magnetic containment. Very powerful, but the frequency is easy to counter. Should I explain the science to them? Not yet, Taemin. Let them draw their own conclusions. Communications Officer Ji-yeon looked up from her station. Captain, I am receiving communications from the other two Valkyrie ships. They are asking their commander for instructions. They seem very confused. Monitor all frequencies, Ji-yeon. Let me know if they call for reinforcements. Velthara heard none of this conversation because the human ship was not broadcasting it, but he could see his own crew becoming more worried with each passing moment. Mordek was studying his scanners with complete focus. His instruments were telling him things that did not make sense. Commander, Mordek said quietly, I need to report something important. This human ship is not what we thought it was. What do you mean? The hull composition is not primitive iron and steel. It is an incredibly advanced alloy. The density suggests materials we do not understand, and their energy efficiency is far beyond our own technology. Velthara turned to stare at his science officer. That is impossible. Look at their ship. It is small and ugly. Commander, size does not always indicate capability, and their ship may look rough, but every component appears to be perfectly designed for its purpose. There is no wasted space, no unnecessary decoration. It is built for function, not appearance. On the screen, Captain Hyunwoo was speaking with Officer Sojin in quiet tones. Velthara could not hear what they were saying, but he did not like the way the human tactical officer was looking at her instruments. Zonhai, Velthara ordered. Charge all weapons to full power. If these humans want to play games, we will show them the true might of the Valkyrie Empire. Commander, Mordek said urgently, I strongly advise against this course of action. We do not understand their capabilities. Escalating further could be dangerous. Dangerous? Velthara laughed, harshly. They have one small ship. We have 3 battle cruisers. Mathematics is on our side. But Zonhai hesitated at his weapons console. Something about this situation felt wrong to him. He was a warrior, trained to recognize threats, and everything about the human ship was telling him that it was more dangerous than it appeared. Commander, Zonhai said slowly, perhaps we should listen to Mordek. These humans have surprised us twice already. Are you questioning my orders? Velthara's voice was deadly quiet. No, Commander, but I am questioning our assumptions about these humans. On the communication screen, Captain Hyunwoo seemed to sense the tension building in the Valkyrie fleet. He spoke directly to Velthara, with a serious expression. Commander, I can see that you are preparing to increase your attack power again. Before you do something that cannot be undone, let me offer you some information that might change your perspective. What information? Velthara demanded. My ship, the UES Tempest, is classified as a medium exploration vessel in the United Earth Fleet. It is designed for long-range missions and first contact situations. It is not a warship. Velthara felt confusion mixing with his anger. If this is not a warship, why does it have such powerful shields? Because human space is dangerous, Commander. We learned long ago that even exploration ships must be able to defend themselves. In our region of the galaxy, there are many hostile species. A ship that cannot protect itself does not survive long enough to complete its mission. Officer Sojin looked up from her console and spoke to her captain. Sir, they are charging weapons to maximum power. All 3 ships are targeting us. I see that, Sojin. Prepare defensive pattern 7. Yes, sir. Should I also prepare counterattack options? Captain, Hyunwoo considered this for a moment. Prepare them, but do not implement without my direct order. We are still trying to resolve this peacefully. Velthara heard none of this exchange, but he could see the human crew making preparations. The calm efficiency of their movements bothered him. They were not acting like people who were about to be destroyed. They were acting like people who were simply doing their jobs. Commander Velthara, Captain Hyunwoo said, his voice becoming more serious. I am going to give you one final warning. If you fire on my ship with full power, I will consider it an act of war against the United Earth government. My crew and I will defend ourselves with all necessary force." "You dare to threaten the Velkari Empire?" Velthara shouted. "You are one ship against 3. We will destroy you and then find your homeworld." Captain Hyunwoo's expression became very cold. "Commander, you have made 3 serious mistakes today. First, you assumed that technology must look impressive to be advanced. Second, you assumed that size determines capability. And third, you assumed that we are alone out here." "What do you mean alone?" The Devourer energy beam struck the human fleet with incredible force. Each beam carried enough power to destroy an entire city, but the human ships held their position. Their shields flared with brilliant blue light as they absorbed the devastating attacks. The smaller human ships worked together, overlapping their defensive fields to create an impenetrable barrier. Fleet Commander Velthara watched in amazement as the human vessels took punishment that would have vaporized his own ships. The UES Tempest shook under the assault, but Captain Hyunwoo remained calm at his station. "Shields holding at 60%. Engineer Taemin reported. Power system stable. 42 seconds until Devourer weapons recharge. Tactical Officer Sojin announced. All ships maintain formation." Behind the human shield wall, the 3 Velkari ships waited for their moment. Velthara had never felt so helpless in battle. His powerful plasma weapons, which had seemed so impressive just hours ago, were now their only hope of contributing to this fight. "Commander," Science Officer Mordek called out, "human tactical systems are sharing target data with us. They are showing us exactly where to aim for maximum effect." On Velthara's display, red markers appeared on the Devourer ships. These marked weak points in their armor and shield systems. The humans had learned these vulnerabilities through years of fighting this enemy. 30 seconds. Sojin's voice came through the communication system. "Velkari ships, prepare to fire on my command." The massive Devourer ships continued their assault, pouring energy into the human shields. But Velthara could see that the humans had calculated everything perfectly. Their shields were strong enough to absorb the full attack, and they had positioned their ships to protect the Velkari fleet completely. 15 seconds, Sojin announced. "Velkari ships, lock onto designated targets." Tactical Officer Zonhai worked frantically at his weapons console. "Targets locked, Commander. All weapons, charged and ready. 10 seconds, prepare to fire." The Devourer beams began to weaken as their weapons approached the end of their energy cycle. The human ships had endured the full assault and were still fighting. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Fire! All 3 Velkari ships fired at once. Their plasma weapons, guided by human targeting data, struck the Devourer vessels at their most vulnerable points. The attacks were perfectly coordinated and precisely aimed. The results were immediate. Explosions bloomed across the Devourer hulls as Velkari weapons found their marks. Armor plating cracked and weapon systems overloaded. For the first time in the battle, the Devourers took serious damage. "Excellent shooting," Captain Hyunwoo's voice came through the communication system. "Velkari weapons are more effective than they realize." But the Devourers were not finished. As their main weapons recharged, they launched fighter craft from hidden bays. Hundreds of small attack ships swarmed toward the Allied fleet like angry insects. "Devourer fighters incoming," Communications Officer Jiyeon reported. "Point defense systems activating." Velthara watched in wonder as the human ships transformed again. The hidden weapon mounts that had appeared earlier now revealed their true purpose. Thousands of small cannons emerged from the human hulls and began firing at the approaching fighters. The space around the human fleet lit up with defensive fire. Every Devourer fighter that came within range was destroyed instantly. The humans had built their ships to handle exactly this type of attack. "How do they shoot so accurately?" Zonhai asked in amazement. "Computer-controlled targeting," Taemin explained over the communication link. "Human point defense systems can track and destroy thousands of targets simultaneously." The Devourer fighters that survived the point defense barrage reached the Allied fleet, but they found no easy targets. The human ships had positioned themselves to protect the Velkari vessels, taking the brunt of the fighter attacks on their own hulls. "Velkari ships," Captain Hyunwoo commanded. Use your weapons against the main Devourer vessels. We will handle the fighters. Velthara ordered his ships to focus their fire on the large enemy vessels. The Velkari plasma weapons, while primitive, compared to human technology, were still effective when used properly. Under human guidance, they targeted critical systems and weak points. The battle continued for 20 minutes. The Devourers threw everything they had at the Allied fleet, but human tactics and Velkari determination proved superior. One by one, the massive Devourer ships began to show serious damage. Their shields are failing, Mordek reported excitedly. Velkari weapons are penetrating their defenses. Press the attack, Captain Hyunwoo ordered. Do not give them time to recover. The human fleet moved forward, maintaining their protective formation around the Velkari ships. Their weapons, far more advanced than anything the Devourers expected, tore through enemy defenses with devastating efficiency. The first Devourer ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, then the second. The remaining 4 vessels began to retreat, but the human ships pursued them relentlessly. Do not let them escape. Captain Minho's voice came through the communication system. Devourers who survive will bring reinforcements. The final 4 enemy ships were destroyed before they could reach safe jumping distance. The threat was eliminated completely. All ships report status, Captain Hyunwoo commanded. One by one, the human vessels reported minor damage, but no casualties. The Velkari ships had survived the battle completely undamaged, protected by their human allies throughout the fight. Commander Velthara, Captain Hyunwoo said, your ships performed excellently. Velkari weapons proved very effective against Devourer armor. Velthara felt a strange emotion he could not identify. These humans had saved his fleet and his crew, then gave credit to the Velkari for helping in the victory. It was unlike anything he had experienced in his long military career. Captain Hyunwoo, Velthara replied, without human protection, my ships would have been destroyed in the first attack. We owe you our lives. Commander, allies do not owe each other anything. We fought together and we won together. That is how alliances work. Over the next several hours, the 2 fleets worked together to scan for additional threats and repair battle damage. Human engineers shared their repair techniques with Velkari crews. Velkari scientists studied human technology with amazement and respect. Communications Officer Ji Yan established permanent communication links between the fleets. Commander Velthara, my government would like to invite Velkari representatives to visit human space for formal diplomatic negotiations. Diplomatic negotiations? Velthara asked. Trade agreements, mutual defense treaties, cultural exchanges, Captain Hyunwoo explained. The things that civilized species do when they become friends. Science Officer Mordek looked up from his console with excitement. Commander, they are offering to share technology and scientific knowledge. We could learn so much from them. And we would like to learn about Velkari culture and history, Taimin added. Every species has something unique to contribute to galactic civilization. Velthara made his decision. Captain Hyunwoo, the Velkari Empire formally accepts your offer of alliance. We would be honored to join the community of species that humans have assembled. Welcome to the galactic community, Commander. I think this is the beginning of a very productive friendship. As the 2 fleets prepared to separate, Velthara reflected on everything that had happened. Just a few hours ago, he had thought the Velkari Empire was the most powerful force in the galaxy. He had tried to force primitive humans to submit to his authority. Now he understood the truth. Humans were not primitive. They were the most advanced species he had ever encountered. But more importantly, they used their power to protect others. Instead of conquering them, they built alliances instead of empires. Commander, Zonhai said quietly, what will you tell the High Command about this encounter? Velthara smiled for the first time in years. I will tell them that the Velkari Empire has made its first real ally. I will tell them that we have much to learn about strength, and that true power comes from protecting others rather than dominating them. And if they question your decision to ally with humans, then I will remind them that these humans saved our lives when they could have left us to die. I will tell them that humanity offers us partnership instead of conquest, knowledge instead of ignorance, and friendship instead of fear. On the main screen, Captain Hyunwoo gave his final message. Commander Velthara, safe travels to your home. When you are ready, send a diplomatic mission to these coordinates. Humanity looks forward to a long and peaceful relationship with the Velkari Empire. Thank you, Captain Hyunwoo, and thank you for showing us what true civilization looks like. As the human fleet departed for their own territory, Velthara began composing his report to the Velkari High Command. He would tell them about human technology that made Velkari weapons look primitive. He would describe human tactics that turned impossible battles into easy victories. He would explain human philosophy that valued cooperation over conquest.